The term quiet quitting was first popularized around 2022-2023 out of the labor market to describe employees who start doing the bare minimum at their jobs because they don't really see any benefits in going above and beyond for their employer in terms of promotions, upward mobility, not even job security. But not long after, people also started applying the term to relationships, to this phenomenon where they stop putting effort into unfulfilling friendships, romantic partners, even family relationships. Why has this become such a commonplace term? Is quiet quitting new, a byproduct of the cultural climate that we currently inhabit? Or is it simply a byproduct of dynamics that have always existed between people? Let's dive in. Before I go into the psychological reasons why people quiet quit relationships, I thought it would be interesting to look at what people are saying online about why they have done this phenomenon or how they experienced it. And before I go into that, I'd also love to hear from you guys in the comments. Have you ever quiet quit a relationship, or has someone ever quiet quit one of your relationships? This could be any kind of relationship, whether it be family, friend, romantic partner. I'm interested in all of it. So look at this Reddit post. My partner, female 34, quiet quit our relationship, and I, male 37, need closure. We had been together for approximately 4 years, engaged for the last year, bought a house, had big plans to ride off into the sunset together. It was the best 4 years of my life. We were absolutely crazy about each other. She didn't break up with me until I forced her to make a decision because she was quiet quitting in the last few months by being distant, cold, not engaging. She never had the gall to actually do it, so instead she just became a bad partner until I had to begin the discussion. I'm absolutely devastated. I can see why she became unhappy. I became busy at work right after we bought the house. It's a fixer-upper. With my job and the house, I will definitely admit that I neglected the relationship, but never to the point that I was a bad partner. In my mind, it was just a tough time that we had to work through, and I was happy to do it with her. I took it all on. She claims she stopped asking to do things together because I would always say no because I was too tired at the end of the day. She claims that our life goals don't align, but she never really communicated what hers were. Mine were to get married and get a house. Kids were always a question mark for the both of us. She always said she wanted to travel. She went on 3 tropical vacations last year, multiple European cities the year prior. I thought that box was checked for her. Last November, she went on a trip to French Polynesia and then met up with me in the Caribbean for a friend's wedding. December was great with all the Christmas parties, but once that party subsided, I began to notice she was on WhatsApp a lot. Turns out she's been talking with a guy she met in Polynesia 3 or more times a day. Texts, calls. I never thought she was capable of cheating, and I honestly don't think she did. I just find it absolutely wild that she wouldn't talk to me about trying to fix stuff before she started considering talking to another man so much. We're separating, selling the house, etc. I've never been so heartbroken in my life. I've worked so hard for our shared life, and she just wants to chase butterflies. I need closure though. Why couldn't we work it out before it got bad and the damage done? Maybe I'm just ranting, but I'd like to know anyone else's similar experience and input. And then unfortunately there's an update that says new information has been obtained proving that she did in fact cheat on me. No closure required. Onwards, I guess. Wow, that changes the situation a considerable amount. So I'm taking this with a grain of salt because it's from the person receiving the quiet quitting, not the person experiencing it. But even from what he says about this, it sounds like there were multiple reasons why his girlfriend might have been unhappy in the relationship. Incompatible life goals, a strong desire for novelty on her end, maybe lack of quality time, or what he calls sort of neglect on his part. To him, it sounds like this was just kind of a lower blip on their timeline where things just weren't as good as in the past. But from the way he's describing her, it sounds like maybe she wants things to be on the up all the time, and even something like a temporary blip can feel to her like a permanent downgrade rather than something that can be improved. I also checked out a post where someone was asking people why they've quiet quit friendships specifically, when they knew I had an open schedule and could work around them to get together almost any time, yet I was the only one suggesting we catch up. Even when they were in my area, they never reached out first. In my 20s, I had a friend who was toxic, typical toxic behavior. She would insult me, and when I got offended, she'd say, I was just kidding. When I finally called her out on it and asked for an apology, she gave the standard non-apology. I'm sorry you took it that way. She got engaged to a guy she'd known for 3 weeks and got mad when I suggested that maybe she should take things a little slower. She would flirt with every guy I was interested in, and she kept flirting with every guy she met even after she was married, often to the point of being snugly and affectionate with them. She craved attention from men. She badmouthed other people to me, and after a while I realized she was probably badmouthing me to other people. After being friends with her for a few years, I started pulling away and eventually just stopped communicating with her altogether. She was flaky and eventually I just gave up. For me, it was one-sided. I was tired of being the only person to put in the work. She's too busy. Although I'm happy she's trying to accomplish her goals, I want a friend who's already established and is able to enjoy life rather than still fighting for the basics. I'm not planning meetups 6 months in advance anymore. She takes on too much, she thrives in chaos, which is great, but she ends up living in this all-consuming state and has this constant sense of urgency. I respect her hustle, but it leaves little bandwidth to actually be my friend. I found it interesting that so many of the answers were about flaky or low-effort friends, almost like they're giving the other person a taste of their own medicine, or maybe just realizing there's not even a point in having like an official friend breakup with someone whose friendship would completely disintegrate the moment you stop putting in effort on your end. Also, some of them were referencing toxic friends who had a history of maybe not responding very well to feedback, so it makes sense why they wouldn't want to confront that person and instead just kind of quiet quit the friendship. This directly connects to one of the reasons why people quiet quit relationships that I'm going to talk about right after a quick word from today's sponsor, Foreo. I've been considering whether to use an LED mask for a while now, so I was really thrilled when Foreo kindly sent me their FAQ 202, an FDA-approved LED face mask. So research into LED face masks has shown a reduction in fine lines and wrinkles, reduction in acne, an increase in skin elasticity, collagen production, skin firmness, all of which are really important for maintaining the youth of your skin as you age. Like this PubMed article where 136 participants were randomly assigned to either a control group or a treatment group with blinded evaluators. The study showed significant improvement in the intervention group versus the control group. There are two wavelengths at which there are particular benefits. One is red light, which is around 600 to 660 nanometers, and the other is near infrared, which is around 810 to 850 nanometers. The FAQ 202 contains wavelengths in both of these ranges, both 850 and 650 nanometers. In terms of the FAQ 202 specifically, this is what their studies have shown. A 32% reduction in wrinkles, an increase in skin firmness and elasticity, 48% acne reduction, and more, even just 2 weeks in. So here's how I use the FAQ 202. The mask arrived with a peptide serum that contains skin-nourishing ingredients like, of course, peptides, hyaluronic acid, centella. This serum is meant to optimize the LED's performance with photoreactive ingredients. So every night after I cleanse my skin, I put the serum on my face, followed by the LED mask. The mask is very lightweight, it's wireless, it's made of silicone, which means it's much more flexible on the face compared to other much more rigid LED masks. See? So I start a timer for 5 to 15 minutes and I wear it while I'm doing something else. It's really easy to just multitask with it. And afterwards, I'm able to just apply on my regular skincare. The peptide serum hasn't at all interacted with my other skincare ingredients to cause pilling. And I've tried this with both my morning routine and my night routine, and both of them were fine. I've been sleep deprived for a really long time, which can really take a toll on the skin. And I don't know if I'm imagining things, but already since starting to use it, I feel like my skin is a little firmer, which would make sense because the research literally shows an increase in collagen levels. So whether you're looking to improve acne, reduce fine lines, or improve collagen levels, the FAQ 202 is a great tool. Currently, Foreo is having a birthday sale, and if you use my code DrAnna35, that's DRANA 35, you can get an extra 35% off, which means up to 50% off Foreo products. Click the link below. Don't forget to use the code DrAnna35, and thank you so much to Foreo. Back to quiet quitting. What are the reasons people quiet quit relationships? One common reason is something called relationship burnout, sometimes also related to learned helplessness, which is when you basically learn that no matter how many times you try to change your circumstances, it's not going to work, so you just kind of give up. Sometimes you communicate an unmet need, and the other person either responds very defensively where they're not willing to give you what you need, or they try to give you what you need, but it's very short-lived because for some reason they just can't do it. Either way, your need continues to go on unmet. You might keep pleading, explaining, negotiating, begging, arguing, but over time, the more of these negotiations you have, the more your psyche loses hope. And so it's a form of self-protection to quiet quit because we can't keep hemorrhaging energy into something that's clearly not working. Past a certain point, when you keep trying something and it doesn't work, the psyche sort of shuts down so that you stop suffering basically by having hope that things are going to get better. Another reason people quiet quit relationships is they're not consciously yet willing to end the relationship, but unconsciously they want it to be over. This is likely in the contemplation or maybe preparation stages of change, where you're very much ambivalent. You want change, maybe there's a part of you that wants to change, but there's also a part of you that doesn't want to change. There are parts of you that think the relationship can still work and parts of you that want it to end. So you unconsciously start to sabotage the relationship because a part of you wants it to end, hoping that your disinterest will make the other person end it, or perhaps waiting to meet someone else, like it sounds was the case with that Reddit post. It sounds like the girlfriend kind of wanted to end the relationship relationship. She was already checked out. She was already cheating on the guy, but she didn't want to be the one to do it. So she basically quiet quit until he forced her hand. Another reason is that sometimes an actual cutoff is near impossible due to situational factors. Whether you are an immigrant and you being there depends on your spouse, whether you have joint finances or you depend on your partner financially, whether you can't leave a job with a toxic relationship because you really need that job or it's really important to you, whether you have kids with someone that you're trying to limit contact with, whether there are other family members that you still want a relationship with, that you kind of need to be around this person sometimes, that even though you really don't want to. In those situations, quiet quitting is kind of akin to low contact. You're pretty much emotionally estranged from them, but you haven't verbally confirmed it to that person. You're just trying to limit your interactions with them. In a friendship, this can often look like just drifting apart, drifting in different directions, even when often it's quite intentional. In a relationship, it can look like, you're just two roommates, you're just two people living together rather than two people in an actual romantic relationship. Also, sometimes quiet quitting feels like the safest option if you suspect the other person is not going to react well to a formal ending of it. Like in cases of abuse, victims are at highest risk when they decide to leave a relationship. But even in lower forms of unsafety, if a person hasn't responded well to feedback in the past, has thrown it back in your face or blame shifted or deflected in some way or punished you for bringing up the concern, you might just kind of be like, what's the point? If I confront this person, they're just going to make me feel worse. So let me just pull back quietly. Whether or not you're conscious of the fact that you want the relationship to end, quiet quitting can sometimes feel like the only safe option because you don't want to deal with the negative repercussions of flat out telling the other person that you're done. Quiet quitting can also be a way to find some empowerment in an otherwise pretty powerless situation. If the other person has made it clear that your needs are not going to be met in this relationship and leaving right now is not an option for whatever reason, quiet quitting can feel like you're sort of taking your power back, like you're taking charge of the one last thing that you're in control of, which is your emotional availability. So you might stop being emotionally available to them or supporting them or investing in them or spending that much time with them. And it feels empowering to you because no matter what they do, they can never force you to invest more in the relationship. They might be able to manipulate you or other people into getting what they want from you, but they can never force you emotionally to invest in the relationship. But let's be honest, there are also sometimes some less than ideal reasons why people quiet quit relationships, namely conflict avoidance or poor conflict resolution skills. A lot of people weren't taught how to healthily navigate differences in a relationship. Either it wasn't modeled or explained to them, or the conflict that was modeled to them was highly ineffective, to say the least, filled with yelling or contempt and so on. So those people tend to avoid conflict because they don't know how else to navigate it. When they've tried to move through conflicts in the past, it hasn't worked out too well for them, and they don't realize that there is an alternate route. Conflict resolution is a very large topic. It's, requires its own video in and of itself. I actually have an entire section in the Connection course dedicated to conflict resolution itself. Like perhaps the person who quiet quit her relationship in that first Reddit post, she may not have known how to communicate to her boyfriend that she wasn't happy anymore, that she no longer wanted to work it out, or maybe if she had communicated it sooner, she wouldn't have ended up in a place where she no longer wanted to work on it in the first place or she resorted to cheating. Another less than ideal reason why people sometimes quiet quit relationships is to punish the other person or out of resentment. Like after a betrayal, someone might quiet quit a relationship because they don't want the other person to feel like they can just get out of the doghouse that quickly. Like if somebody cheats on them, a person might quiet quit a relationship because what is the alternative to staying in the relationship? Being mad at them for a couple days, a couple weeks, and then moving on like nothing happened? Like what message does that send to their partner? It sends the message, okay, in the future, if you cheat on me again, you're just going to have to deal with me being mad at you for a couple weeks maybe, and then things will go back to normal. I think most people, when they're betrayed, they don't want to send their partner that message. And it's tricky too because you can't just force yourself to get over a betrayal. But there comes a point where you need to decide, are you going to stay in this relationship and ruin it slowly? Are you going to leave the relationship cleanly because you're no longer invested in it? Or are you committed to rebuilding trust without holding a grudge? And it may not feel like a fair choice to make if it's not you that caused the initial rupture in the first place. But sometimes when we love someone and we want to be with them, we need to be the bigger person. If that doesn't sound doable to you with this person in this relationship, maybe a clean break from them is the better option. Too often people stay in relationships and they try to work it out long past the point of what they're willing to tolerate. And by the time they finally do leave, they've been done for a really long time. But is this a new phenomenon caused by cultural factors, or is this something that has always existed in relationships? Let's start with with the first argument, that this is something new in relationships. What is the evidence for that? Well, this is a relatively new term that's taken off, so maybe it points to something that has shifted in the culture. Family estrangement rates are pretty high, although we don't currently know how high they were in the past. We are constantly hearing about the loneliness epidemic with friendship. People are dating less and less, and those that do date experience high rates of ghosting. On the other hand, there's the argument that this is nothing new. People have always quiet quit relationships. Evidence for that is that lots of terms go viral on social media that aren't necessarily new, but rather just put a name to something that people have always gone through and now are able to connect people via social media who are experiencing the same thing. Also, people mentally checking out in relationships is a very human experience that's likely occurred from the beginning of time, especially back in the day when marriages were much more utilitarian rather than attachment focused, where people were just kind of in it to run the family household rather than to be in love. For me, it seems like there's more evidence for the hypothesis that this is a relatively new phenomenon. While I do think that quiet quitting as an emotional experience has always existed, I imagine it's particularly pronounced now. Why might that be? Like I said, we live in the era of ghosting, a world of social media and dating apps where people sometimes struggle to remember that there's a human being on the other side of that screen, and they somewhat objectify other people and therefore mistreat each other as a result of it. I think this is also particularly problematic in American culture, where there's a high level of individualism. There's very much emphasis placed on you just do what's right for you, you just focus on you, no matter who's depending on you, sometimes at the cost of nurturing your other relationships. We also are starting to see some weaponization of therapy speak. People very much stretching the meaning of terms like, I don't feel safe with you, you're toxic, I'm protecting my peace, to situations where it doesn't really apply, or they're actually just avoiding conflict, or maybe they're actually the aggressor in that relationship. But I want to be really mindful to not over-pathologize quiet quitting, because poor conflict resolution is just one of the many reasons why people take part in this behavior. And I don't want this argument to be used to dismiss all the other very valid reasons, understandable reasons in my opinion. But is there a healthier alternative if you find yourself quiet quitting a relationship? Talk about the relationship a lot. Talk about what you want, talk about the ways in which this relationship has let you down, talk about it in therapy, talk about it with friends and family who are not, involved with this other person, so that you're not like triangulating anyone. Talk about it until you have much more clarity on whether you want to stay or leave. Then determine, is this someone that you can speak openly with? And assess whether you have the appropriate conflict resolution skills for it. Have you tried communicating with them? Have they taken it well, or has nothing changed? Have they punished you for speaking up? Or would it likely be fine? Would they likely take it well and you're just a little bit scared of conflict if you're honest? If you determine that this is someone not capable of giving you what you want, and this is not a skills issue on your part, there is nothing wrong with low contact and emotional gray rocking if you have to keep this person in your life. But be very honest with yourself. Do you have to keep them in your life? Even if there are situations that make it difficult to have a clean cut with them, it might not be impossible. Like a divorce, sure, no one wants to have a divorce. It's not fun. It's very logistically complicated. It's expensive. You have to go to court. You have to split custody. You have to figure out joint finances. You have to start over on your own. But sometimes hard things are worth it, because at the end of your life, you may not have wanted to look back and think, oh my God, I spent 30 years with someone when I could have been on my own happier, or I could have found someone better. Or like a toxic boss. Sure, the job market is really hard right now. It's also very risky if you no longer have income. But if you're honest, can you maybe apply to jobs on weekends until you find a better option, rather than staying in a relationship with like a boss or an employee that's really affecting your mental health? What about if you are the one who's been quiet quit on? Give the other person a chance to truly explain themselves. Be completely open and non-defensive. Say something like, hey, I've been feeling you drifting away a little bit, and I'd like to know if there's anything I'm doing to cause this. I understand this might be tough to talk about, but if you're open to it, I'm here, and I promise I'll just listen. And then actually listen. Don't just jump to immediately defending yourself, which can be hard sometimes, especially if you feel like the other person is not being fair about it. If they're, assuming the worst of your intentions without checking in with you about what your intentions actually are. If they misinterpreted something you said, if they're immediately jumping to cutting you out of their heart over a simple misunderstanding. I've been there. I know that it's really hard to not react defensively in those situations, but unfortunately, if you're gonna open up the floor like this, you really have to hold yourself true to your promise and not get defensive. If you don't think that you're gonna be able to help it, if you think that they might say something unfair, maybe it's better to just follow their lead and let the relationship go. And if you've given the other person a chance to express how they feel and they're still not doing it, and you are holding yourself accountable to saying like, okay, I think I'm making it clear that I am a safe person for them to open up with. At the end of the day, you cannot control what somebody else is going to do. You can try to make the environment as warm and accepting as possible, but if they don't want to tell you what's wrong, they're just not going to do it. So at that point, maybe you want to be the one to cleanly cut the relationship, or maybe you also want to quiet quit the relationship, turn it into like low contact or gray rocking. And at that point, it just becomes a matter of grieving the relationship, grieving the answers that you may never get, grieving the unfairness of the situation. But like some people were telling the first Reddit poster that I read out to you guys, closure is a myth in the sense that you're never gonna be 100% okay with something that you lost that was important to you. Over time, it does get easier. You know, like as the years pass, you really do start to feel more detached from some things that have happened. So at least rest assured that in time, things will get easier. And one day you'll probably be looking back at this relationship and think, it really doesn't bother me as much anymore. What do you think about quiet quitting relationships? Have you ever done it? Has it ever happened to you? If so, what was that experience like for you? Thank you for watching.
Tell me,